Hey guys, welcome to Friday Q&A. How's everyone going? I assume everyone is good. What we're gonna do today, we're gonna kick off with the room and we're just gonna go through some questions. If we kind of run out of questions, we can always chat about personal development, keep it a bit more casual. And if you guys are really out of ideas, then we'll go into the community and see what questions were asked during the week as well. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, sweet. I think Maurice, you had a question for us to start.
Yeah, so tomorrow, actually, I'm traveling to one of my most important games and well, actually three games. And I wanted to ask what are the best pre-game drills to warm up not only your body, but also the disc control.
Yeah. What are you doing at the moment?
Well, at the moment, we usually do an X drill where there's like two stacks,
Mhm.
and one of the stacks has the disc, and pretty much you cut diagonally, right? You receive the disk, and then the other person who threw the disk goes diagonally, and then you just do like this simple X.
Sure. Yeah. I think as I think I gave you a little bit of a response in chat, but I know you kind of wanted a visual response as well, right?
Yeah,
So
that would be great.
yeah, I think there's a few things that we do in Australia, and feel free to chime in, Nick, Cameron, Aiden as well. Um, Mainly we do an exercise called break mark, and then a lot of teams will also do certain variations of a flow drill. So I might just share screen and then I'll talk you through how to run each of those. Have you heard of breakmark or kind of those flow drills before, like a three stack, for example, Marais?
The free stack I haven't heard of. Maybe I know how it looks like, but I
Yeah.
haven't heard of it.
Sure.
But the break mark, from what I know, I think it's three players in a line, right? One
Yeah,
in the
so
middle,
it's a
and
little
you
bit
just
different. I'll just share
okay.
screen and I'll go through it with you. And this might be something that you guys can start using as well. Okay. Are you able to see my screen here? I might just make it
Yep.
full screen. Sweet. So essentially, break mark is when you have two lines, and we have basically two lines of offensive players. One person goes on the mark on either side, and we have one person cutting in the opposite lane. So the goal is to break this mark, and this person's going to go out and then in. And then the goal is to be able to throw either the early inside or the around break. So it's to kind of warm up our break throws ahead of the game. Do you understand the kind of the movement there? And then I can talk through how the flow would work.
Yeah, looks kind of
Yeah.
understandable. I
I'll see.
understand.
So essentially, we'll have one person out here. They're going to go out and in, right? And the goal of the two player here is to throw that early inside or that around. And the goal of the mark is to get a block essentially. I'll talk you through how the pattern works. So you start in the line, like if you're the seven player, you start there. After this person throws, then you'll go into the mark and then you'll throw. So one person will cut, this person has just thrown, and then they'll come into this lane and then they'll cut. So it's kind
Oh,
of
okay.
like both sides going at once. The order is you wait in line, then you go on the mark, then you throw, and then you cut. And then after they cut here, they go to the back of the line over here. And then repeat, mark, throw, and then cut. And then go back into the line. So it's a pretty well organized drill, and quite easy to flow on. That's break mark, which kind of helps everyone, and we do it at Sunder as well, to kind of calibrate before the games in terms of our breakthrows and our timings, as well as our cutting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it
Is there
looks
any part?
efficient.
Yeah,
So
it's super efficient. It's super efficient. Like everyone gets a good rep. Um, is that kind of clear? Are there any questions in this that I kind of haven't explained well, or
yeah, I mean, when I saw it visualized, it's way more clear, to be honest.
makes a
So
lot more sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So this is the kind of out in cut. And then the other option that we often transition to is the lateral cut as well. So instead of going throw, mark, sorry, mark, throw, and then this cut, it's throw, mark, throw, and then this cut. So to practice kind of the same thing,
Mhm.
the inside or the around, but kind of for a lateral cut. You can imagine like a front of stack slash, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of similar pattern. You go mark, throw, and then cut. And then the other side is going mark, throw, and then cut. Going open side and then break side. And of course you can flip the force as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Both of the drills look good, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Um, and you've heard of three stack as well. I'll just go through that quickly.
I
Um,
think I've seen it. I think some of the teams in our like championship do it to warm up, but
yeah. So essentially, I got three wonky lines here, but um, three lines, and essentially we have just one frisbee, and it's an out in cut, and you get it here, and then while the person's getting that cut, it's an out in, they get it here, it's an out in, they get it here, and then the next person out in, sort of thing.
oh, okay.
Does that kind of make sense? And
Yeah,
so
I
what you
see
do
that.
is after you make the throw, like see if say if I'm the five making the throw to the two here, then you kind of go to the back of the line of where you went. So you always want a few more people in the middle. So because people are going towards the middle. So they'll throw, the disc will go here, the two will go to the middle, they'll go out in. That's kind of pattern there. Yeah.
Okay, looks good. I'll definitely use them.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Um,
like little warm-up drills that kind of you're able to do. Um, but I think sticking with two or three ones that your team is used to is great, and then can kind of get into it quickly and be productive, so things like that. Nick, Cameron,
of
Aiden, are there
course.
any things that you guys do that is interesting or might be worth mentioning?
Yeah, actually, I'm curious. Did you mention four lines? Do you guys do that?
Yeah, we do four lines. I know there's a lot of different variations of four lines. Cameron, do you guys do what sort of variation of four lines do you guys do?
Um, we like almost routinely this year we're doing like an up line,
Yep.
and then I guess we call them boulders. So
Hmm.
it's like out and under.
Open under.
Uh, out and under. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's open, sometimes it's not open, but
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. So
um,
you just flip the
and then a
force
deep.
depending on what it is, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the break side under. I don't understand it when the
I can go
flat
through it. I
force.
can go through it with you a little bit if you like.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure. So Mariah, this one is four lines. So is it okay, Cameron, if I just explain this quickly to Mariah? I'm not sure if you've seen it before.
yeah.
But essentially, there's a lot of different variations of this. At Sunder, we do something a little bit different to the direct upline, but essentially, we have four lines with, I assume you're starting with a sideline force to start. And there's discs here, and we just kind of make the upline cut, and then you kind of get the disc there, warming up those throws. And so we will rotate around throughout the four lines, and everyone gets a chance at catching the upline and also throwing the upline. Am I close to what you're doing so far, Amron? Cameron, sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. At Sunder, we do this slightly differently. We bring the stack positive and we go up the line first. We get this faked off and then we come back for that reset around. So it's sort of like a break mark variation of the typical upline portion of the four lines. Okay. So everyone kind of lines up like this. We go up the line, present, fake off, and then we work to break the mark and either hit the early inside again or the around or, over the top, whatever you want. So that's something your team could consider down the track as well, Cameron, as a variation. We find that that's good for kind of helping us warm up into breaking the mark as well. So how this progresses is instead of going from the dump space, then, and Cameron, correct me if I'm wrong, so you guys will then set up towards the middle of the field. Is that correct so far?
Yeah, maybe not. I can't tell. Like 5 yards downfield, not.
5 yards downfield, and then you have an out in cut
Um, actually, it would be from
from here.
from the back.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's why it's only like 5 yards ahead.
Yep. So it's an out in cut, and then the throw is this one, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just to calibrate our cutting, our throwing, timings, things like that. Are you also faking off the cutter as they're kind of changing
Yeah.
direction there? Yeah, perfect. So we're warming up the communication as well. Does that make sense so far, Mariah? So they have like cut here and then throw, and then
Yeah.
after you catch, you go to the throwing line. So everyone gets a turn.
Yeah.
The other variation here is to just flip the force. So instead of the force sideline, then the force goes onto the opposite side. It becomes a middle force, right? And it's a similar idea where you might present deep and then come under, right? Now, Cameron, you said you had a question regarding this.
Well, I don't like the cut. I feel like it's unnatural, and my team never threw to that
Mhm.
sort of cut.
Yep.
So if the force was flat, can you guys see this if I do this?
Oh, I can. That's
Yeah,
stellar.
I just saw that. That was cool. Okay.
Okay, yeah, yeah, dude, go for it.
If that's the force, so it's
Mhm.
flat,
Mhm.
uh I guess you just ignore the other two things there. But um what I'd rather see is that cut. Like practice that. So like you can hit them there if you feel like it, or you can hit them going deep kind of thing. But I guess that's the cut you would see in the game, I feel like more, rather than at least when my team plays, we don't expect that.
Mm.
So you can get rid of it.
I think it's good to contextualize this a little bit and imagine we just have like a vertical stack, right?
Yeah.
And think about in this sort of game state, like obviously different teams will have different principles and different structures, but I guess it depends on, in this game state, what your primary option is. Are you looking to have that one be the next option, or are you looking to have that five or something different? What is the case for your team?
We play horizontal, so
Right.
um I feel like there's generally no under. There might be an out under, but it's like I feel like it's probably going to be an out from the yeah, from number 7, a
Yeah.
slash from number 3, and then an under to the open side. But what they have is basically an out from the 3
Yeah.
and then an under to the break side.
Yeah.
And so I don't
I
know why we
think
do it.
if it is a like a flatter force here, and if it's just straight up, I think what I would say is because it's on this four side line, we probably want to kind of attack this inside channel here, right? Like this one
Hmm.
is a lot more narrow, um, in this space. So that's a bit difficult to access. If they're straight up, the area of the field to access is kind of in this inside channel. So you can kind of almost go out and then just change direction to come back to this inside channel, right? The other option is if they're in this kind of force middle action, similar thing, we can still go for this space here. The other option is if the kind of 7 early clears and then kind of comes in, what we can do as the 3 here is to do what we call a butterfly, right? Is to cut towards the sideline, past the line of the thrower, and then present this option deep. Have you heard of the butterfly before?
Yeah, but more of a 2 steps break side or 1 step break side and then a deep.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Um, I suppose it's kind of like how does that work? I I have a picture of the opposite force, but if the
Mhm.
disc was like that's the disc
Mhm.
and it moves to this guy,
Yeah.
this guy's gonna take like 2 steps that way, but then go deep.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah. That's one way. I guess going past the line of the disc allows you, so you can definitely do that, right? No dramas going from here to here. The only issue is if we have that force middle, the huck kind of needs to go through the middle of the field and land in the middle third, right? Which means there's a bit more margin for error. You're gonna have to throw over a few more players. It's gonna have to travel a little bit further in terms of distance. The benefit of this cut that goes past the line of the thrower is number one, this player knows that they only need to check over the left shoulder, right? Because the disc is going to be on their left side. If you imagine this midpoint.
Yeah.
Right. And then lastly, this same third huck, even though it's a little bit harder to execute, there's a lot bigger margin for error here. You're not having to throw it through the middle of the field. The distance that it travels is lower, and it also stays away with the outside in fading edge. It stays away from other defenders.
Yeah.
So that's an option to consider. Not saying that this is not viable at all. But oftentimes we'll find that if you're able to kind of go past line of the thrower, almost make that cut like, hugging the sideline, then this outside in bladey same third huck is super on.
Cool. Yeah.
And the other option is like, instead of going out towards the sideline, like, if you're coming towards the sideline, this is still an option to hit it here. And then instead of going there, if you feel like the force is like really that middle and you have the space towards the middle, just come in and get this under in the inside channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you have a few options there. Come in here, go out there, or turn it into a butterfly. The reason why I like the butterfly is because you're still presenting the undercut and you're still giving the chance for the thrower to break the mark and hit you here, which is great because you still keep the disc essentially on like the high side, right?
Okay.
So with the butterfly, you're presenting under. If it's not on, you're turning that into a deep cut. Whereas like if you kind of make this cut and you don't get thrown to, then you kind of have to make a clearing cut, which is not super threatening. Or you have to come all the way into the handler space, which might not be ideal, but it might be fine. Right. Anyways, I went on a bit of a tangent there.
Right.
But really valuable warm-up stuff, Cameron, from the four lines perspective. So that one's called Four Lines Marias. Did you have any follow-up questions, Cameron, Marias, or anyone on call? Aiden as well. Feel free to use the chat as well, Aiden, if you can't chat.
Yeah, for me, like question-wise, no, but I like what you just showed, the butterfly.
Yeah.
It's literally thinking outside of the box. You're going out of the field
Yeah.
to make more space.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I have like more of a question. Won't it be a pick with number 7?
say again.
Won't it be a pick? Like,
would it be a pick for 7? So the idea is to have the 7 kind of clear early, right? Is the once the disc swings to this sideline, we have our active cutters are these two players, right? So they're going to be working together to get the disc. If we have that 3 move first, they can kind of dictate where they want to go. If they want to go towards this side, then what I would do as a 7 is to use this space that's been vacated and try, essentially, once the 3 has moved this way, have the 7 come out and then attack this side, right? Because that's going to be vacated. And so now the 3 is presenting because they're coming under. The 7 is getting ready to present. And then the 3 is also presenting for the big backhand same third huck, right? It also becomes open if the 7 gets open on this and the disc gets thrown to 7, then 3 is turning that cut into a butterfly and it's a perfect continuation huck.
Yeah, so it's like almost like a diamond, pretty much.
It is a diamond. It is a diamond. Yeah, just
Okay.
a little bit nuanced because of the sideline, the force middle force, and the disc being on the sideline.
Okay.
So instead of like in the middle, you'll have like pretty perfect diamond shape, right? You might have to, change the angles of attack slightly because of where the disc is, because of what the force is. But that's a tool you guys can use. Clear? Cameron, any closing notes on that one?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I guess it's kind of I brought up 4 lines because I don't like it in practice. But to Mariah's question, like I actually don't mind it, or maybe I do like it for warming up for games.
Yep.
I feel like there's something different. Like when I go to practice, I don't want to have, because this is all undefended. I don't really want to like warm up my throws like that, because I show up early. I'm warming up my throws like a half hour or 15 minutes before I put my cleats on and
Yep.
I'm ready to go. I don't want to spend another 15 minutes running four lines.
Yep.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious, and like, do you find a difference? Do you do different things for warming up for games
Yeah.
versus when you're at practice? Do you do
Yeah.
completely different drills? And
100%. This four lines is like we almost never at Sunder. We almost never did four lines before a game. This was mainly for like to warm up our throws and calibrate for training. What we did usually for games is we'll do a quick break mark, which was the drill I showed earlier. And then we'll usually play 3-on-3 mini or 4-on-4 mini in an end zone.
oh, okay.
So
Okay.
that's what we did most of last season. We'll do our break mark and then we'll go into 4-on-4 mini just to kind of get that defense and in-game speed ready and also kind of calibrate in the small spaces. I know what other teams will do is go into 7-on-7 gameplay, but in like a third of the field. And even then other teams will do like a flow drill with like dump swing score. Like they might have like a big stack in the end zone and then they'll practice like having a disc swinging and then having a kill cut and then dishing it back and then swinging and then having a kill cut.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot of times in
Yeah.
indoor,
What do
especially.
you guys call it?
Yeah. So Cameron, I would say completely right. Like you kind of need to tune yourself to the game pace, get ready with defense. I would encourage like either do a 3-on-3 mini in the end zone, 4-on-4 mini in the end zone. Also, play a third field of sevens. But the other option, if you're thinking that you want a bit of defense to kind of make it more game realistic, just put a defender here, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. If that's something that is valuable. Otherwise, mini kind of serves your purpose in terms of going from more closed drill scenarios to more open game-like scenarios.
And so, are you saying do that before games to warm up for games, or is that just in practice as well? Or?
We usually do a break mark for 10 minutes before game, mini for 5 minutes, and then
Okay.
move to game.
And so, do you also said you don't mind doing four lines like during practice, and I always found it like kind of pointless. I wanted to come to practice and practice against defense, not
Mm-mm.
against. I don't need to throw to someone running 4 yards up line.
Yep.
I've practiced that enough in my life.
Yep.
So I don't know if but you think it's fine. Like you don't mind
So
doing the practices.
I think there's one nuance between how your team or club is running it and how Sunder's running it is almost every kind of little drill in the four lines for us is us having to break the mark, right? So
Oh,
I
okay.
think we're not starting from in line and just throwing an open pass up line, right? For us, that would be a bit of a waste of time because we can all do that, right? What we're doing though is starting from here, going up, coming back, and then it's a chance for like, at Sunday, we get really hyped. Like this defender is going for a layout block every single time, right?
Okay.
And so it's an opportunity for us to calibrate how we're breaking the mark, things like that, right? When we go into the downfield portion where we have a cutter, we go into an out in, but we focus on what's called the stage. Like we focus on getting out on stage, making a move, bang, and then getting the disc under. And then eventually we transition to what we call choice. So thrower's choice. So if we got on stage, present deep, the thrower can actually throw that and we take the huck on, right? Or they'll fake us off and then we'll come back under.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that with this force. We also do that with the middle force. So then all of a sudden our angles of attack change, right? We can go into the inside lane. We can go out to the butterfly. Like I think at Sunder, why we find it useful is the throws that we're working on you know, we're trying to break the mark there, or we're trying to take on, you know, huck, and hit it in stride, that sort of thing. So maybe there's some elements there that you guys can take on board to kind of make that a little bit more valuable, Cameron. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like how you're kind of challenging the thrower on the upline and the backfield cut, and then here you're actually like
Yeah.
focusing on, I guess, even though it's still an open side cut, you're still kind of focusing on, I don't know, footwork and timing with
Yeah,
the thrower.
exactly. And sometimes we even go as far to say, like, the mark's going to be completely flat, and we're going to have this person and they're going to go out and present. So it's a chance for this thrower to throw a huck through a flat mark. You know what I mean? So, like, you know, you have people like kind of trying to take on a full 50-meter, 60-meter huck through a flat mark. It presents itself as a challenge and a good way to warm up for our throwers that will be taking that on in game, right? And if they can't, they'll fake it off and still have to break the mark to kind of hit the under as well.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like.
But I think there's some little nuances that you guys can do to make it a bit more exciting, especially on the first one. Like, instead of having them in line and then just going up the line, which I think, you know, as you said, Cameron, you've probably been doing that your whole life.
Yeah.
Have them kind of positive, come out here, get faked off on the upline, and then come back and then see how this thrower is going to break the mark and see how that mark is going to react. I think
Right.
that's super valuable.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool. All right, we talked a bunch about warm-ups. I think we pretty much rounded the discussion. Marias, and anything else on that front? You think it's good?
No, like it was a great explanation, and I think I even got more than what I asked for. So it was great. I learned a lot of new stuff. So
Yeah, sick. Yeah. I mean, ultimate, right? There's so many things you can do, so many nuances, so many drills. Like, you know, Cameron, you and I are on opposite sides of the world, and yet we still have some similarities when it comes to warm up and things that we can learn from each other. So I
Yeah.
guess that's the value there. Cool. Um, let's move on. Any other questions? It can be related to the warm up. It can be separate. Aiden, if you have anything, feel free to leave it in chat. Cameron, anything on your mind?
I do have one, but I've been talking a lot, so if anyone else has a question, go first.
Maybe we'll give it 5 or 10 seconds, and if not, Cameron, you can jump in.
Sure.
Maurice is a thinking face. Got his thinking face on.
I'm just trying to look serious, like professional.
Trying to look good
Like,
for the YouTube video, Maurice. We all know.
yeah.
Nah, just joking.
Teen problems.
All right, Cameron, hit us.
Okay, so another thing I've been thinking about, we talk about power position, and do
Mhm.
you guys use that term?
Yep. Do you use that term,
Uh,
Maurice?
Yeah, of
Yep.
course.
okay, I don't believe it's useful. I don't think I've ever caught the disc in what people consider power position and gotten a better look or throw in that position. I don't think it helps me with my throws. Maybe that's because I can't throw in stride or something, but I also don't need to because I don't have an 80-yard huck, but I have a 60-yard huck. So like most of the field, I don't need a power position. So
Yep.
I'm wondering, what do you guys think about that? Is it just something that people talk about and regurgitate, or have you actually found it useful?
That's a
I'll
great
give
question.
Eric the microphone. Go on.
Cameron, I've actually never thought about that. So let me interpret it a little bit. So you're saying you're able to throw from static the same options as you would be able to throw in what you quote unquote calling power position.
Yeah, like so power position being basically I'm running up line, just like we were saying, in the four lines drill, that same
Yep.
cut.
Mhm.
And I'm catching it up line 5 yards, 10 yards ahead of the thrower. Uh, but it's an open side cut. So like my mark is not even going to set up
Yep.
in front of me. So like I don't need to get there ahead of the mark because I will be able to throw it. And I don't need the momentum because
Because you
90% of the
already have
field,
the power.
yeah. And then I've found if I do have momentum, I can't really throw 30 yards, like under 40 yards until I've stopped because maybe it's something I need to practice, but I've just found
Yep.
it's too hard to throw like a short distance.
Yeah.
Maybe more so the flick, but
Sure.
yeah. So I
Um,
find power position like a detractor of my game, not a useful thing.
okay, cool. Two things, Cameron. I think the first thing is I would argue that the majority of people will find like that don't have kind of the 60-yard flick. The majority of people, I think, will find that having that forward momentum will give them an extra, 2 to 5 yards on the distance, just because of the momentum going forward, just because they're kind of throwing in stride. I think that's the general vibe or consensus that I feel with athletes is that they prefer to kind of get that range, and I feel like that helps them in power position. I think for a player like you who finds that that balance is, more effective when it comes to throwing, I think I would encourage you to think about what power position does for the downfield as well. All right. Because when we're starting from static, the game state is very much like, all right, we have a defender here. This person's gonna try lose them, and then they're gonna make a cut. And it's all very kind of prescriptive, right? Whereas if you get a disc in flow, in power, then being able to cut off of that flow is a lot more powerful, if you get what I mean. It's almost like the value is not only in the throw perspective, but it's also in the downfield perspective because defenders aren't aware of where the disc is because of any movement of the disc into a different area of the field. The threats all of a sudden become different, right?
Mhm.
But for example, if the disc stays here, yeah,
Mhm.
then this cutter, this defender knows that the disc is, say, I don't know, 40 meters away, right? And
Mhm.
so they know that this area, let's just assume, is not much of a threat. They can stay under. Let's just, this is an assumption, and they can protect this area of the field,
Mhm.
right? But all of a sudden, if the disc moves downfield 5, 10 meters, because this person has gotten the disc upline, the threats on the field instantly change.
Right.
This all of a sudden becomes accessible super easy for 90% more people. At the same time, this area is no longer a threat, but this area is a threat, right? So all of a sudden, the game state changes. All of a sudden, this person who's marking underneath can't really do that anymore because how many times have you seen a disc go to power position and it's just like an easy, like leading pass huck? It seemed like the defender was completely out of position. You see that too many times for it to be kind of a coincidence, right? So it's because I think, and I've never really thought about this before, Cameron, but it makes kind of sense when I talk and think about it a little bit more, is that the game state changes because now we're closer. All of a sudden, this area is more accessible and this cut is more on.
I don't want to be like pedantic, but I
No,
just feel like
please.
so I have a couple clips that I found recently of like
Yeah.
what exactly you're saying.
Would you like to share screen?
Yeah, I have to find them. It
Okay,
won't
okay.
take.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah.
Basically, power position in my head is more like, oh, I'm gonna get extra power and it's gonna help me throw like instead of 50, 55, 60, instead of 60, I'm gonna but it's not like, oh, it's gonna help me throw 30 yards. But I've seen exactly what you're saying
Yep.
happen at like the 30-yard range. And so it doesn't really jive with it being a power position, from what
Yeah.
I understand, like that term to mean. Um, like, do you guys think power position's like a thing that'll help you throw like 40 yards? Is that like part of what power position is, or
I think it's very nuanced. I think some people will benefit from the momentum and some people won't. In terms of finding out whether it actually does on average, I mean, we can't really find out unless we survey every ultimate player, right? Maybe some percentage of people find it better, some people don't, right? I think when I'm, and Mariah, feel free to chime in as well. But when I'm thinking about power position as a concept on the field, like I find myself on the sideline when someone gets an up line, I might say, oh, power or power position, right? Is that something that occurs in your communities as well?
I feel like no.
Not really, like communication. But I think like the reason why I'll say, oh, a thrower is in power position is for the downfield defenders to adjust, right?
Okay.
So I think it's less, almost if you think about it, it's less so a concept for the thrower themselves, but more a concept for downfield defenders to recognize where the game state is. Is that someone has all of a sudden gotten closer towards the end zone by 5 or 10 meters, and therefore the threats on the field change.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think in terms of like whether power position actually gets the thrower more power, that's something we can't really find out like unless we kind of ask everyone, right? I would be very curious. I mean, I think I did like do some benchmarking on my throws between like power position, like throwing from power position and throwing from static. And it was probably like very close. I would say like throwing from static, it was probably even more consistent. Um, but I might have gotten an extra 2 or 3 meters when I was in power position. I think it's an interesting exercise. People should definitely go benchmark their throws and measure, like take 10 discs, go throw from static, see how far you get, throw from power position, see how far you get. I think that's an interesting experiment. But I think like the value there is to communicate to the defenders downfield on how the game state is evolving, how the game state's changing.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. That's a great question. I've really never thought about that, but I'm glad with the conclusion that we ended up on because yeah, sometimes you really just need to break things down and have a think about it and figure out, oh, why is it that we do this, right? Yeah. Cool.
Well, those are the clips I was thinking of. I think the first one's a better one, but
Yeah. Did you have them okay in chat?
yeah, can you see them?
Yeah, I'll just pull out. First one you said?
Yeah.
Cool. I will share screen and then we can watch it. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
So it's like the near side. Brown teams on offense.
Yeah. Nice. That one?
Yeah. It's a bit choppy.
Yeah. So I think, is there anything you want to call out in this context?
It's power position. It's exactly what you said, but it's not like it's a 20-yard throw.
Let me highlight this a little bit. And I think this is a great example that you pulled up, Cameron. Is right now, right? Let's just hit pause here. Okay. Sweet. I'm going to go back a second. So right now, I'm going to draw a screen, trying to highlight what we talked about. We have this defender, right? They're fronting at the moment. We can agree on that.
Yeah.
The reason they're fronting is because this area of the field is difficult to access right now. Okay. There's two main reasons. Number one, the distance is far. Yeah. Number two, there's a defender in that space. As a result, this area is right now low risk. Now, in just a second, the game state completely changes. Because we're able to get power position. Pause. Let's reassess the risks. Previously, this person was under because this was low risk, right? Now, the game state has changed. The disc has progressed 10 meters. As a result, all of this end zone, which was not a risk before, is now a risk. This defender and this player has gone closer towards the far side. And all of a sudden, we've gone from none of this being an option to this being the only bright red flashing option. All the while, the defender has maintained that under buffer because that's how they set up just a second earlier. As a result, it's an easy leading pass score. I think that's a great example of kind of what we discussed with power position. Not really, like, obviously for some players, there's value in there literally leading to more power. But I think the true value is that it changes the game state in a split second, and defenders don't have enough time to adjust.
Right. Okay.
Is there anything you wanted to call out in that example, or anything that you wanted to ask in that context, or in this particular example?
No, I just thought it was a kind of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it just kind of highlights like you can get the disc offline. People might call it power position. I just don't understand that term. But
Yeah.
from a defensive perspective, like if you hear that, then like you might be screwed if you have your back to the disc and
You're
they,
exactly right.
yeah.
So like when I hear the term power position from the sideline, or when I hear that called out, as this defender, I can't really change the fact that I set up under, can I? But what I can do is overplay the deep, because I know this is the big threat. So what I can do is really try and haul my ass to stop that option. And that's the best we're gonna do, right? There's nothing else that we can. If we're already stuck here, then if I hear power position, then that's the best I can do. The other option is for this player to say, oh, power position, power position. This area is a threat. Let me see if I can take them out of plan A. See if I can add a bit of pressure there as well. But I think, Cameron, you kind of found the clip that was a perfect example. It's like we almost scripted this discussion. What a perfect example for what we were talking about. Yeah, so good on you.
Nice. Well, yeah, great answer. I mean, thanks for your input.
No, that's okay. I think a lot of the time, if we see this occurring, see if we can get like this player to jump in here, cause a little bit of chaos. And also on a separate note, no, that's all good. I was gonna see if there was an angle for a roll there, but not really. Cool.
Right.
All right. I think we've had a pretty comprehensive discussion today. We're clocking in at 9:45, so it's been a good 45 minutes, but it's felt like 5. I think we've had a good chat.
Yeah.
I might open it up. We've had Ethan, Nick join back in. Are there any kind of quick fire questions that the group might have before we kind of call it for today?
I got a question. I don't know if it's a quick fire question. You can tell me if it is or not.
Okay, yeah.
Um, so as I've been playing more and more, I've kind of found myself really needing to lean into a physical handler like defender. And I'm trying to figure out like what the best way and what the most successful way to put a body on my guy is while playing defense.
Do you feel so? Why do you feel like is that kind of the role that you're kind of stepping into and kind of wanting to improve at? Is that the kind
Yeah,
of motivation behind
that's
the question?
yeah, exactly. It's one of the areas I want to improve in the most. I
Yeah.
feel like when I do it, I'm just not as successful as when I'm not putting on a body, although I feel like it could be useful if I learn how to do it properly.
What's making you? What do you feel like you're missing?
I think I mean, from my understanding, when you use your body, you're just trying to take away more like options from the guy, correct? Like if I'm pushing him in a certain way or whatever I'm doing to make sure that he can't like go up line or whatever I'm trying to keep him from or them, whatever, from going from, I feel like I'm not doing a good job of doing that and they're just beating me to that spot. Whether that's because I'm like jumping for something else or I'm not like using my body in the correct way, I don't really know. Is there any
Hmm.
like just general suggestions you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. Firstly, I would say it's a great endeavor for you to be expanding your game and to be considering how you can add different elements to your kind of defensive ability, right? Yeah, I think there is value in being able to absorb contact in the handler space, especially in the little upline space, right? I think I might just share screen quickly, and then I can kind of give you an example of where I think this most applies. And I can get your thoughts as well, Ethan, as well on that. Okay.
Okay.
So I think the biggest scenario is when we're on this sideline and we have this player. Let's say the force is really around. This player really wants to win this upline space. And so they have two main options, right? They have what are they?
As a defender or as the offender?
As an offensive player.
I personally, I would like take 2 steps towards him and then just cut horizontally if I'm really trying to attack that upline space. Like, yeah, kind of like that.
Okay. And what's the other option?
It's like take 2 steps back, try and get the defender to bite, and then go up a line.
Yeah, that's another option. And then in terms of where you end up, what's another option?
Right, and what do you mean?
So these are both ending up in the short kind of upline
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
What's the other option?
Go around.
Yeah, you can take kind of like the leading pass angle.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that viable?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So it's yeah. So let's just imagine like a vertical stack here. This person trying to attack all this space. This is a threat.
Okay.
This is a threat. Let's assume that this is not a threat because the mark is taking it away. Okay?
Yeah.
So as a handler in this scenario, what I'm trying to do is either get it here or get it here. Okay? And you'll see like a lot of, especially like the Colombians do a great example of this, is getting positive the disc and then just taking the big leading pass space because they're able to float their throws so well into that. Okay? So as a handler defender, one of our key goals is saying, hey, number 7, this guy's the best fucking guy in the world, right? So we don't want him in the handler space, do we? We want to see if we can push him out. We want him to try take this line, and we want this to be faked off and not thrown to. Therefore, we get, Jimmy Mickle out of the handler space and get him cutting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense. Exactly.
So, a few ways to position ourselves. We can take this outside lane and prevent this, but that gives them the easy in, right? That's fine, but Jimmy Mickle still has power position. Sorry, Cameron, for lack of a better term. Jimmy Mickle still has power position in the the 2 to 3 yard kind of 2 to 5 yard space, right? So this is probably not our first priority, especially if we're trying to get this person out. But it is conservative because they don't get a lot of yardage. The other option is to be on this inside spot, right? We're trying to stop this now, but then this becomes more of an option, right? So it's more risky, but it's more reward because if it doesn't get thrown to, then Jimmy Mickle's not in the handler space anymore. And we have a little bit to work with defensively, right?
I like that. Yeah.
Where the physicality comes in, I find the most common scenario is when you take this spot to prevent this, and this handler really, really, really wants it somewhere here. So that's when you have to hold your ground and absorb that contact as they're coming into you because they really, really want it somewhere here to kind of take it, absorb it. Don't push them, but hold your ground, right? That's where you can kind of, the rules in Ultimate are a little bit, blurry for us to interpret. And once they make body contact with you and you're holding your ground, it slows their momentum. It means that by the time they're not open, they kind of have to make a clearing cut. You'll be closer to them and you're able to shut that off.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sweet. Nick, please. Oh, you're on mute, Nick.
I was just trying to figure out how to unmute myself. I have something quick to add to the physicality factor, and sorry for the noise. I'm on the main street of Wellington. Anyway, I just wanted to add that when you're kind of trying to take and absorb that contact, you don't want to be doing that when your offender is at pace and you're not. You really want to be doing that as the offensive player is like standing still or about to change direction. That position in the cut where the net speed is 0, like when they're moving, you probably don't want to be taking that contact. You want to be guiding them and going with them.
Yeah.
But as they're trying to turn, that's when you can really put your body in the way and force them to take an angle that they might not want to take. So
Yeah.
as Eric's saying, and when they get into that close space, the large contact is going to come in, the physicality is going to come as you've shut that off, and then they change and try to go somewhere else. Rather than as they're making that move into that space.
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because like if you're just here and they run into you, like, you know, first of all, that's not best defensively because they're just going to take this. But if you're kind of establishing that early and guiding them, then you can make a very easy case within the confines of the rules that you're both vying for the same space, right? So I think it's more acceptable on that front as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. And I think just play with it, Ethan, like trial and error, right? The more data we can get, like different players like to play things differently. Like I like to play it close and then push them out and try contest that. Some players like to play it on the outside shoulder and get a hand in to stop the little one. Different context of the game might account for, you know, different scenarios, different ways to play it. And there's so many variables. So all we can do as players is try our best and see what sticks. Cool. I think that's a great question to end it off on. Any closing comments from the group? Yeah, Aiden's commented blocking foul occurs when a player takes a position that an opponent moving in a legal manner will be unable to avoid. Yeah. So just be careful of the blocking fouls. We don't want to be holding a position that an offensive player can't avoid. All right. In that case, it is a defensive foul. And we don't.
But the stall count doesn't reset, so it's still a good foul.
I mean, you guys can interpret within the confines of the spirit of the game what's acceptable. But anyways,
yeah.
Great to have you, Aiden, our resident game advisor. So don't go out there causing fouls because of body contact, guys. Sweet. All right. I think we had a good chat. If there's any closing questions or if you guys have any questions that pop up during the week, just pop it in the school group. If you're not already inside, it's school.com/ultimate. We got free community, free resources, free vibes. It's a great place to be. So make sure you guys ask inside there. Nick, you've raised your hand.
What's your prediction for the opening ceremony match?
Nick is going to pop off for 10 goals, but I think the Dingoes will take it 15-12. What do you reckon, Nick? What are your predictions?
Talking to me?
For the Kiwis, I reckon.
So there's two Nicks on the line. Go ahead, Nick. Nick Whitlock.
Me? This one?
The other one.
Oh.
15. 15 Kiwis, I think.
Say again. You cut out for a bit. All right, we're losing you.
Nah, I'm excited for a close game. It'll be good.
Yeah. It'll be close and it'll be great.
I think it'll be a real close game.
I got to back my boys, Nick. Sorry, mate. All right.
Fair enough.
I think it's good. Let's call it there. We've had a good chat. Again, feel free to jump on the community if you guys have any questions that pop up. And I'll see you guys for the next one. If you guys have any other personal questions, just DM me. I'm always happy to help out where I can. So, too easy.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you, Eric. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya.
Yeah.